The rain had just stopped, leaving Hong Kong streets gleaming under the neon haze, puddles reflecting fractured signs and empty alleyways. The air smelled of wet asphalt and the faint metallic tang of lingering storms. At the pier, an abandoned bus sat silently, its windows fogged, headlights dim. A strange hum seemed to vibrate from its engine bay, though no driver ever occupied the seat. Shadows shifted inside as if anticipating something. The city felt paused, caught between a storm that had passed and a darkness yet to arrive. The faint echo of footsteps on the slick pavement hinting that the night was far from over. The hum of the bus reached the ears of the few stragglers still wandering Hong Kong's streets. Whispers of its legend slipped through the damp night. An abandoned bus that drove itself after storms, cursed by past tragedies. Street vendors pulled in their carts, glancing nervously toward the pier as if sensing eyes that weren't there. Neon signs flickered and reflected in rain, slicked alleys, shadows twisting unnaturally. Passers-by hurried by, their umbrellas shaking off water, hearts thudding as if the city itself was warning them. Something waited in the stillness, patient and deliberate, biding its time until midnight's dark command. Kai, an urban courier navigating the empty streets, noticed the bus move slightly, a subtle jolt as if breathing. His pulse quickened, the rational part of his mind dismissing it as a trick of reflections or uneven pavement. But the bus shifted again, doors creaking softly, engine murmuring. No one was inside. His footsteps faltered as the impossible truth sank in. The bus wasn't abandoned tonight. Something beyond comprehension guided it, and the city around him had become an observer to a quiet, unnatural awakening. Inside the bus, faint disturbances rippled. A chair swiveled, papers fluttered in invisible drafts, and the soft hum of the engine deepened into a low growl. Raindrops tapped against the windows rhythmically, punctuating the silence like a heartbeat. The city felt miles away, the pier now a distant echo. It was as if the bus itself was aware of Kai's gaze, teasing the boundary between observer and observed. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet curiosity anchored him to the wet asphalt, as if drawn by a magnet made of dread. Midnight arrived, and the bus shuddered once before rolling forward. The streets, still glistening from the storm, reflected its ghostly headlights like molten silver. With no driver, it navigated corners effortlessly, obeying no rules of physics yet moving with terrifying precision. Kai's breath caught as he realized the legend was true. The bus had awakened. Hong Kong slept unknowingly around it, unaware that a silent predator now prowled its empty streets, guided by something ancient and unseen, beginning its nocturnal pilgrimage into the heart of the city's secrets. Whispers of the moving bus spread through the narrow streets like wildfire. Pedestrians froze as it glided past them, silent yet imposing, headlights slicing through the mist. Eyes widened. Hearts raced. Street cameras captured impossible footage, while distant car horns sounded against an eerie quiet. Something was orchestrating its journey with deliberate intelligence, and the city's inhabitants could feel the brush of its unseen presence. Fear mingled with curiosity, and even those who had scoffed at legends felt their skepticism unraveling. CCTV footage from a nearby convenience store showed the bus cruising along empty streets, driverless, yet flawless in its navigation. Frame by frame, viewers noted shadows moving inside the bus, forms that didn't belong. City dwellers crowded online streams, debating what they saw, unable to rationalize the impossible. Something unearthly was claiming the streets, and the mechanical hum of the bus carried a voiceless warning. It would not be contained. Inside the bus, lights flickered as faint whispers threaded through the air. Seats appeared to shift, as if occupied by unseen forms. A cold draft carried the smell of rust and ozone, unsettling any sense of normalcy. Those who peered inside glimpsed faces in mirrors, pale, transient, almost smiling before vanishing. The city outside blurred, the ordinary world dissolving under the weight of the bus's silent, spectral intelligence. Urban explorers, drawn by the rumors, approached the pier as curiosity overpowered fear. May took the lead, flashlights slicing through the mist. The bus, silent yet purposeful, waited as if aware of their presence. Every step toward it felt like trespassing into a threshold between life and something else entirely. The night's pulse quickened with anticipation, the city itself holding its breath, as the boundary between human and spectral blurred. As they boarded, the bus seemed to sigh, doors closing behind them with deliberate force. The engine hummed without ignition, propelling the vehicle forward with no driver. Panic sparked in their eyes as the city outside warped unnaturally. Lights streaked, streets twisted, and the whispering intensified. The bus had become a predator, and they were trapped within its mechanical, spectral grasp. The line between reality and nightmare had been crossed, and the night's horrors were only beginning. The bus interior warped with a cold, spectral energy. Mirrors reflected faces that shouldn't exist. Pale, hollow-eyed, silently screaming, shadows moved independently of light, crawling along seats and windows. Kai's pulse thumped in his ears as he realized they weren't alone. Whispers echoed, forming fragmented sentences that spoke of tragedy, betrayal, and endless wandering. Every turn of the bus brought new apparitions, the air thick with their sorrow. A haunted gallery replaying forgotten deaths to the living intruders trapped within. One by one, the explorers began to vanish. Shadows stretched and pulled them into unseen corners. The air grew icy, making each breath a struggle. Kai reached for May, but her form flickered like a broken hologram before disappearing. Tomo's voice cracked as he called out into the void. The bus wasn't just haunted. It was a living predator, collecting memories and souls alike. The city outside dissolved into a smear of neon, leaving them suspended in a nightmare that defied logic or escape. The bus accelerated unnaturally, turning corners that should have been impossible. Streets outside bent, signs warped, and buildings elongated as if reality itself obeyed the bus's will. Shadows of the dead stretched along walls and asphalt, reaching for the living passengers trapped inside. Kai and Tomo stumbled through the aisle, struggling to maintain footing, while the whispers grew louder, chanting names, recounting final moments. Every second felt infinite. The outside world, replaced by the bus's own spectral domain. A chilling voice rose above the hum, recounting the bus's tragic history in a tone that was both sorrowful and malevolent. Each word carved into their minds, revealing a tale of flood, betrayal, and a driver who died cursing the city. The passengers' ghosts relived the final moments of their lives, interacting with the explorers in silent pantomime. The bus was not just a vessel. It was a memory made flesh, an instrument of punishment and mourning that moved with a mind older than the city itself. Realization hit like ice. The storm had triggered this horror. The bus's power peaked during the midnight cycle, feeding on memory and fear. The few remaining explorers understood they were pawns in a repeating nightmare, each journey rehearsed by ghosts who would never leave. The city beyond the windows was no longer their refuge. The bus was a labyrinth alive with sorrow, a vessel between the living and the dead. And the night was far from over. Time began to distort. Seconds stretched into eternities as the bus twisted through streets that no longer obeyed logic. Neon lights bled into long streaks, turning familiar avenues into a labyrinth of warped reflections. Kai felt his balance betray him, the floor bending beneath his feet. Shadows writhed along walls and ceilings, sometimes forming grotesque shapes that whispered his name. Reality had become elastic. The city a dreamscape controlled entirely by the bus, and the survivors' minds were straining against a tide of disorienting horror. Hallucinations assaulted them relentlessly. Kai saw fleeting visions of past failures, faces of loved ones warped into accusatory masks. Mai's ears filled with voices not her own, recounting every secret fear. Tomo's hands burned as invisible shapes brushed against him, leaving trails of cold in their wake. The bus's interior had become a psychological crucible. Fear was amplified, bending perception until the living could no longer distinguish between their own memories and the ghosts of the dead. The bus interior mutated further, stretching and collapsing like a living organism. Walls pulsated with faint light. Floor panels groaned under invisible weight. The explorers could no longer find the front. Doors vanished into walls. Windows revealed impossible vistas of the city, floating above water. Fear twisted into desperation. Every attempt to move forward was met with a new spatial impossibility. The bus itself had become a nightmare, conscious and cruel, its corridors a maze designed to break minds and trap souls. Shadows of the former drivers appeared, their eyes glowing faint red, hands gripping invisible steering wheels. They whispered threats and lamentations, vying for control over the bus. Kai tried to flee, but every movement was mirrored by ghostly hands reaching from walls and seats. Mai's voice quivered as she realized the bus wasn't merely haunted, it was alive. Fed by sorrow and rage, its intelligence malicious. Every decision they made only tightened the grip of the spectral drivers, binding them ever closer to a fate they could not escape. The survivors' first attempt to escape failed. Doors that had appeared moments ago vanished. Windows revealed endless voids. The bus seemed to pulse, feeding off their terror. Kai's breath came in ragged gasps. Mai's tears mixed with condensation, and Tomo's grip on sanity slipped further. The vehicle's heart, if it had one, beat in rhythm with their fear. Every instinct screamed to flee. Yet the bus whispered a promise of unending torment, and the night stretched forward like a living, malevolent thing. The bus veered sharply, entering a maze of abandoned subway tunnels. Darkness swallowed the neon city behind them, leaving only the hum of the engine and faint ghostly whispers. Concrete walls stretched into impossible angles, dripping water echoing with distorted tones. Kai's footsteps clattered on the warped floor as he searched for a way out, while Mai's flashlight cast trembling beams across dripping pipes and jagged shadows. Tomo followed cautiously, every turn making the tunnels feel infinite. The bus was no longer a vehicle. It was a labyrinth alive with malice, feeding off fear and memory. Outside the windows, reality fractured further. Streets twisted into impossible angles, bridges looped back into themselves, and buildings appeared to float above waterlogged city blocks. Kai felt vertigo as the bus navigated impossibilities effortlessly. Mai's flashlight caught glimpses of spectral figures watching from collapsed rooftops, their eyes gleaming with sorrow. Tomo struggled to hold his balance, the bus moving like a creature with intent, guiding them deeper into a surreal maze that blurred the line between the living world and spectral purgatory. The ghostly passengers began reenacting the final moments of their lives in increasingly vivid detail. Woman, 32, clutched invisible children, screaming silently as if reliving trauma. Boy, 10, mimicked a fall that had long ago ended in death, suspended mid-air. The man, 40, repeated a futile attempt to escape, shadowed and trembling. Kai, Mei, and Tomo were forced to witness every act, unable to look away as though the bus demanded their participation in the eternal replay. The walls pulsed, the tunnels bent, and the city outside was reduced to abstract, haunting fragments. Kai noticed strange inscriptions on the walls, glowing faintly in rhythm with the bus's engine. Symbols pulsed like a heartbeat, casting distorted shadows across the floor. Mai traced the markings with her flashlight, realizing they depicted scenes of the bus' prior victims and the driver's curse. Tomo leaned closer, pale, recognizing the figures as real people missing decades ago. The bus was not merely a labyrinth. It was a record of grief, rage, and death. Each symbol, a tether binding lost souls to this unending journey. On the dashboard, a spiritual rift opened, a swirling vortex of shadow and light revealing glimpses of Hong Kong's dark past. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within, feeding the bus's power. Kai Mei and Tomo watched in silent terror as the vortex revealed tragedies long buried. Faces of victims trapped within. The bus accelerated, navigating tunnels that twisted reality further, a living bridge between the city above and the spectral labyrinth below. Escape was still possible, but only if they could confront the horror at its heart. The bus shuddered violently as the ghostly driver appeared, materializing in the front seat with glowing red eyes and a sunken, haunted expression. His presence radiated centuries of sorrow and rage. Kai Mei and Tomo froze in terror, realizing the driver's spirit controlled the bus entirely. Every twist of the wheel, every shift of the gears was guided by his vengeful will. The whispers of the passengers intensified, forming a chorus of accusation and lamentation. The storm outside raged in sync with the pulse of the bus, as if the city itself had become the ghost's instrument of punishment. The explorers learned the bus was cursed decades ago during a devastating flood. The original driver had perished while trying to save passengers, cursing the city in his dying moments. Each storm reawakened his rage, animating the bus to collect souls for eternity. Kai's stomach churned as he pieced together the timeline of death and despair. The ghosts were trapped, replaying their final moments endlessly, while the driver's spirit ensured the curse remained unbroken. The bus was a vessel of sorrow, an instrument of both memory and punishment, and the storm was its trigger. The storm's fury escalated, mirroring the bus's malevolent pulse. Thunder cracked as the vehicle surged through impossible streets, bending reality with every turn. Kai realized the curse was cyclical. Each storm summoned the bus, feeding the driver's wrath and awakening the trapped souls. The city above slept unaware, while below, the explorers were prisoners of a nightmare replaying itself with relentless precision. Time itself seemed to dissolve, leaving only the bus and its spectral passengers in a timeless, haunted dance. Only one choice remained: confrontation. Kai stepped forward, trembling but determined, facing the driver directly. The whispers of the ghosts converged, guiding him toward the truth buried in the bus's heart. Lightning illuminated the interior, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. The driver's eyes flared with fury, yet there was a trace of sorrow, a remnant of the man he once was. The storm in the bus's pulse merged into a single rhythm, and Kai knew he had to break the cycle before the next midnight claimed more lives. The bus stuttered to a halt, revealing a ghostly mirror of Hong Kong beneath swirling storm clouds. Time and space warped, the city simultaneously alive and spectral. The driver's presence faded, leaving a silence filled only with dripping water and distant thunder. Kai, Mei, and Tomo stared at the reflection, understanding the curse's magnitude. The storm's cycle would continue, and the bus, ever patient, waited for the next midnight. One night had ended, but the haunting was far from over. Kai emerged from the bus into the quiet, rain-slicked streets of Hong Kong. Midnight had passed, but the city remained drenched in an eerie glow from lingering neon lights. The bus had vanished, leaving no trace, as if it had never existed. A chill lingered in the air, carrying whispers from the tunnels below. Kai's chest heaved, heart pounding as he realized he had survived, but the experience had left an indelible mark. Somewhere in the shadows, the bus waited, patient, ready to awaken again with the next storm. The dawn revealed a city oblivious to the horrors of the night. Streets glistened with storm water, pedestrians returning to their routines, unaware that a driverless haunted bus had stalked them mere hours earlier. CCTV cameras flickered blankly, capturing only static, as if the event had been erased from memory. Kai walked among the returning citizens, haunted by memories of faces and whispers he could never forget. The city seemed calm, but a hidden darkness still lurked beneath the neon glow. Rumors began to circulate once more. Street vendors whispered of a bus that drove itself at midnight, vanishing without a trace. Eyes darted nervously toward the pier, where fog lingered like a veil over the water. Those who had survived told fragmented stories, but skepticism prevailed. Yet beneath the city's surface, shadows shifted, and faint hums echoed along empty streets. The legend was alive, and the memory of the bus haunted even the bravest souls who dared walk Hong Kong at night. Without warning, the bus returned silently. It glided along empty streets, doors closed, headlights dim. New silhouettes appeared in the windows, unaware victims caught in the same cycle Kai had escaped. The storm had not yet come, but the bus waited, patient and eternal, ready to collect souls with the next midnight. The city above hummed with life, blissfully ignorant of the horrors threading beneath its neon veins. The final shot. Storm clouds gathered over Hong Kong, low and heavy, rumbling faintly in anticipation. The neon city shimmered beneath, unaware that the curse would repeat. Kai disappeared into the crowd, haunted but alive, while the bus waited in shadowed streets, a predator patient for the next midnight. The cycle was eternal, and Hong Kong's heartbeat now sensed with something ancient and unseen. Poised to strike when the night again embraced the storm,